If you're enjoying Pigoted Podcast, then why not sign up to our Patreon? You can find it at patreon.com/pigoted, and on there you get loads of extra benefits, such as early access to episodes. You get access to Pigoted Extra, which is extra content from our guests, usually about 45 minutes to an hour long of extra content every single week. You get merchandise, you get to ask questions, you get to be part of our Discord community. We have a Discord server where people chat and ask questions and discuss topics that have been brought up on the podcast. You get all that through Patreon, and it starts from just £3 a month. Plus, you'll be supporting the podcast. You'll be helping the podcast to grow, helping us to fund bigger and better guests and to pay for all the editing and that kind of thing. So please, if you are enjoying Pigoted, then think about signing up and becoming a Patreon from just £3 a month over at patreon.com/pigoted. Welcome to Pigoted Podcast. Joining me this week is comedian... Fucking hell. I fucked up inside 3 seconds this time. That's a new record for me. Joining me is comedian Vince Atter.
Hello.
Hi. And also is comedian and philosopher Alex Farrow.
What?
Good afternoon.
Comedian, philosopher and doctor?
Not doctor, no, not a doctor at all. No.
just damn him on your first bit there, man. Wow.
Didn't you say that you were a member
I've got this thing on my academic CV. It's called a fellowship, which sounds very good, but it's
Lord of the Rings.
It's got that vibe, yeah. It's as real as the Fellowship of the Ring. It's what they give to teachers if you do like a year at Oxford, but it doesn't count in any other way in any other institution.
So what's it called?
I have a fellowship from the Farmington Institute based at Harris Manchester College, Oxford.
Wow. You know it's clever when I don't think I could even say that.
You could hear me struggling to get to the end of it.
Well, here's the thing as well. We're not so different, you and I, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
I also have a fellowship.
Oh, yeah.
I am a creative. I'm a current creative fellow for the Manchester International Festival.
That's amazing. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you can both fuck off.
Where's your fellowship, Quinn?
Fucking nowhere. the Fellowship of the Quins.
Sorry.
Just Gollum over here, like, where's my precious?
We'll be sailing away. We'll both be sailing away. Go, sorry, Freddie. This is the fellowship. You can't get on.
I've never felt more intellectually inferior in my entire pissing life.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you got yours. I basically kind of got mine. It's like a tenure more than anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the idea being like, basically, I kind of represent Manchester International Festival. But I've already told them that I want it to be like, I want it to be in perpetuity. So I want like a CFIP underneath that.
Okay.
Creative Fellow in perpetuity. But I've decided. I mean, they've not agreed, but it doesn't matter. I'm still gonna say it.
They've been weirdly quiet on their response.
Well, for me, it was really good because it just meant like I could get myself into loads of meetings. That couldn't basically the doors couldn't be closed to me that would normally be closed. Yeah. That's kind of what mine was. You want
to start putting some letters at the end of your name. Nobody will ever question you whatever letters you put after your name.
CFIP?
Yeah, do it, mate. Do it. No one will ever pull you up on it. Wow. I promise you.
Oh, do you know what? It's happening tomorrow. Well, so what's
my letters?
What's the What is it? Sorry, what is it?
Oh my God, Joe, stop making me do it again. I'm getting into a hot sweat in case I get it wrong.
What is it?
I'm going to get a professor somewhere come up to me like, you said it wrong. You'll never be allowed into the city again.
So what actually is it? What does it do? What does it...
Well, it doesn't do very much other than sound very good.
So it's just a title?
Well, what I did was I spent a year at Oxford researching how to do philosophy in schools with kids. Because it's quite a hard thing to do. It was very nice. Got paid to do it, which is nice. Thank you, good people at the Farmington Institute. It was very kind of you. I was a teacher at the time, and so also my school at the time was very nice because they let me bunk off on Fridays to do it. Which is very nice.
Bunk off to read.
Bunk off to read and study.
I have to say, I'm an ex-teacher myself.
Yeah, no, man. Yeah.
And I saw in the headlines recently that they were planning on introducing Latin into the school curriculum for some high schools, and I had a bit of a hissy fit at the fucking sheer level of pointlessness that is. But
what are they offering as a for?
Well, what they're doing, you see, it's a very clever idea. This is, you know how the current national curriculum is so tightly packed that having even a few days off can result in massive gaps of learning. Well, they've decided that given that everyone's had months off due to the pandemic, to add more things
a bit more.
to.
Do you know what I think will solve structural inequality in the UK?
Yeah.
Learning the language of the greatest slave state ever known to man.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a slap in the face, isn't it? Really? That's not to say that Latin isn't useful, got space for it. I just don't think it's what we're missing right now.
Can't wait for some little smacker drinking Lambrini in the park going, in vino veritas. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, mate, it's just, do you know what it is? It's somebody who's gone, these really posh, successful people from private schools, they learn Latin. Maybe it's Latin that makes people good. And it's like, maybe not.
Maybe we just gave morning tales to all the state school kids. Maybe they'd be fine.
I would honestly, completely change the education system if I had a chance. I would completely change it so that you couldn't just drop out at 16 with nothing. It was either, like, I think that you should either go down an academic route or a vocational route or something similar to that. I think, like, the amount of people that drop out at 16 with literally fuck all shows that whatever we're doing isn't working at all.
I think supposedly you're not supposed to drop out at 16 anymore. That's like what my dad did. But
Really?
technically, it's supposed to be to 18.
Right.
18,
Really?
You've got to be in educational training until you're 18. Yeah.
That is
didn't know
not
that.
true. That's
No, I can't say it's enforced.
whereabouts are you from again?
No, I'm not from around here. No, it's different where I come from. No, just keeping it real though. That is like the law. If you're a 17-year-old there being like, well, I'm not in school or training, you're illegal.
That's crazy.
Pretty Patel's going to come and take you take you to a night class.
Geography.
That would be such a fucking... Imagine being rounded up at 17 and being forced into a night class to learn French, be made to download Duolingo on your phone.
Not for Alex, it'd be a joy. Like it was saying I bunked off on Fridays to read.
Me bunking off
philosophy.
involves like a very difficult research project at an institution.
Now, you went to Oxford, yeah?
Yep.
And what is it that you studied at Oxford? Was it pure philosophy?
No, you can't do pure philosophy at Oxford. They're too snobby about it. It's not
Really?
hard enough. Yeah,
Why can't they do it?
Well, I suppose they could, but you have to mix it with something. So, like I didn't realise I was going to have my full academic credentials broken down. So I did my undergrad in London, in King's College London, and then the rest of my qualifications from Oxford. The reason I went to London was you can't do pure philosophy at Oxford, because for them, I mean, they're like, it's a 1,000-year-old institution. Philosophy's a bit new to them. They all started off as religious colleges, right? And so, KCL, UCL, and stuff like that, philosophy was associated with atheism and things like that. And
really?
So Oxford's got a bit of a snobbery that is
So
really...
and it's still there, isn't it?
Oxford's got a snobbery to it.
You won't believe it, mate.
Yeah.
New college is like 800 years old or something like that, and they've not dropped the new.
Christ.
Holy shit.
Newfangled.
These newfangled colleges outside of the medieval city walls.
So what sort of...
What if there are barbarians? What if the great heathen army comes again?
What if the Northerners come down here and...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm on about.
With their steak bakes and their meal deals.
Them Scandinavians, man.
The vowels.
Corrupt the fucking youth with their ready meals. So what sort of philosophy...
When I came on this podcast, I was like, I wonder what my persona is going to be. I wonder how I'm going to come across. It's like, it's posh twat. Right, cool. I got it. There we go. It's not really particularly true of me, but I did say it's not really particularly true of me, which is probably giving me away, isn't it? But
no, I think that...
It's the bunking off on Fridays.
I somewhat deny the hypothesis you put forward about my class.
No, I think that, the thing is like, I'm from a working class background. You're from working class background as well. Did you mention?
Yes.
Yes.
Probably. Yeah. Well, I am. Yeah.
I don't begrudge anybody. Like, holy shit! If I had the fucking chance to go to like really clever institute, I'd fucking do it in a heartbeat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I don't. We're not thinking like I'm. It's weird. Like, I only realised only sort of in the past few years I kind of started holding people with posher accents in higher regard.
Really?
I found myself doing it.
Don't do that, mate.
But I know. Well, life has taught me that. But I just found myself, I don't know. It's like, oh, well, he clearly knows something. He's, there are T's. few glottal stops, this.
What sort of philosophy are you particularly interested in?
Loads of it. Particularly interested in utilitarianism.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. Do you know what utilitarianism is?
No, I don't.
Vincent?
No. What is it? I need to say this, by the way, as well, before I start. Every time I go on holiday for the past sort of few years, I take Think with me.
Yeah, by Blackburn.
Yes. Right? I have never got past 20 pages in. And I mean to, but I don't. I find my head just starts spinning outwards, and I kind of do have the capacity for abstract thought. It's been known, but kind of then I start reading it and I go, here's the thing, and here's the thing, and here's the thing, and I'm going, here's the thing, and then I go, but what if none of that was like, oh.
But it's supposed to be read slow. You're doing it right.
Okay, good.
So
I remember 20 pages over 4 years.
Yeah, at uni, all the other students laugh at the philosophy list until you read a paper that's 1 page long, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to read this 72 times to work out exactly the meaning of it. And so it's designed to be taken slowly. It's designed to
that's good.
Maybe wrongly designed to be taken so slowly, but that's the thought of it.
Well, I took
utilitarianism. I don't know what it is.
So I took philosophy at college, where I gained the prestigious qualification of a C. And there's a very good reason for that. At college, I decided, very clever idea this, I decided that some exams weren't worth going to, which in retrospect might have been a mistake. And I actually missed one exam to watch Colombia versus Uruguay at the World Cup, and it was a 0-0 draw.
Oh God, yeah, that was an awful game.
Yeah, it was awful. It was dreadful. I watched it in a Yates's instead of doing my general studies exam.
Wow.
Anyway,
general studies,
I got offered to do philosophy and English language at Lancaster, turned it down. And then I did philosophy and English language and linguistics at the very, very prestigious institution of the University of Central Lancashire.
Yes, lad. UCLA.
UCLA. And they did actually want to be called UCLA at the very beginning. And the University of Central Los Angeles said, we will sue you for everything that you have fucking got, you little Prestonian arsewives.
Darwin.
So I did it I did philosophy at university for a little while, and it drove me fucking insane because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I thought it was going to be a picking up of where we've already left off at college, when what actually happened was there was an awful lot of rehashing, there was an awful lot of focus on the ancients, Plato and so. The minute that we came in and they went, we're going to be talking about Plato's cave. I was like, this is fucking shit. I've made a huge mistake because I'm not interested in Plato or Socrates or Aristotle or anything like that. It bores me.
The one thing I did get from those first 20 pages of Think isn't like one of them like Plato or Socrates was invented by as a character?
Well, yeah, there's this kind of risk that Socrates weren't real.
Because the Republic.
Yeah, in the Republic, there's a risk that...
in the beginning of this book, in the 20 pages of philosophy that I have read over the past 4 years, it did say that it was a character created by, was it Plato?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah,
well, so he kind of lent into the idea that it was a character created by Plato. And I was like, so I'm reading a script, and I was like, what the fuck is this? So I didn't expect characters.
So Socrates is obviously, Plato was a student of Socrates, and Aristotle was a student of Plato, I believe, and probably the most famous book written by Plato, The Republic, centers around conversation between Socrates and Plato and a few other fucking characters that come and go.
So it's basically an early podcast. Didn't catch on for a little while, but...
Yeah, every once in a while, at the end of every chapter, Socrates goes, why not sign up to our Patreon?
Patrius.
Yeah, Patrius.
Well, Latin jokes. Go on, Vince.
I can see that. Anyway, utilitarianism, you don't know what it is.
I think that's not a word for working class people. There's no glottal stops in that. Utilitarianism. I'm
going to hazard a guess at my definition for what it is, which is a moral coda whereby actions should be appropriated based on what does the greatest number of good for the greatest number of people?
The greatest happiness for the greatest number. Yeah.
Pretty much smashed that, haven't I?
All right. So like, I guess as an example would be like if you. All right. So in Game of Thrones.
Great place to start.
Yes!
Why not?
In Game of Thrones, there's the Red Wedding. There's the Red Wedding.
I don't watch it.
Basic episode, the Reigns of Castamere. The idea being like the Starks, one of the big family, they're all invited to a wedding. Okay, they're all invited to a wedding, and they all get murdered. Most of them just get murdered at this wedding. It's called the Red Wedding. It's one of the most brutal scenes of it. But then afterwards, they spoke to the another character, Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance. He was the one that put it together. He was the one that put this whole thing together. And he was like, how could you do that? You murdered. And he went, listen, this war would have lasted for a generation. I killed 10 people there. What is it, 10 people or 100,000? Is that what is that close to?
Spot on.
So, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty red on. I mean, when you said so in Game of Thrones, my expectation for the analogy was at fucking rock bottom level. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought you were going to go...
Analogizer, mate.
I thought you were going to be like, so she really likes these dragons, but which one's she going to choose? But yeah, that's pretty much bang on.
That's what I mean, that's the first thing that came to. Then I thought, but even then, like if you'd have seen the Reigns of Castamere, you wouldn't agree with utilitarianism because it's one of the most fucking brutal, evil things I've ever seen on TV. But I also understood entirely what he meant. But the thing is, he didn't do it for utilitarian reasons. It wasn't for the sake of his troops. It was for the sake of... He did it to win that war because he's a warmonger. But so I guess maybe is that the debate?
Well, one of the risks of utilitarianism is it can be used to justify great evil under the pretense of good.
Yeah.
Really? In what way?
Well, so when we've heard it, right? So you should do the greatest happiness for the greatest number. It sounds like almost like maths. It's like, well, of course, that's what the right thing to do is. Except it tramples over individual rights. And so, is it right that one man should die to save the lives of many? You might be like, well, maybe a bit cold, a bit heartless, but maybe it's the right thing to do. But who gets to decide that?
Yeah. So if you had like one healthy man and 5 people all with needing organ transplants. Like if there was a
classic,
if there was somebody who needed like a liver, and somebody who needed like a fucking heart, and somebody who needed a brain. This is going Wizard of Oz.
I was about to say,
There's a scarecrow, there's a tin man. It's a weird hospital.
They're lined up on a sick bench.
But surely what happens is utilitarianism would say, well, the right action would be to kill the healthy man and to harvest his organs and to give them to those 5 people who will live, because it's what is the happiness of one person compared with the happiness of 5?
What if it's 5 cunts?
Well, there is this. What if it's 5?
Was that book 4 of Plato? I can't remember. On cunts, I believe, was his.
5 cunts. Imagine if like a Nietzsche released that God is dead, and in my next book, on 5 cunts, just fuck everyone. But I think that utilitarianism is one of those things where it sounds like a really nice little package. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course you want to do the greatest number of good for the greatest number of people. Of course you want to. That seems to go without saying. But when you actually drill down into it, it's just a messy, disorganized, kind of not quantifiable piece of shit. Because, for example, how do you quantify what the greatest number of good means? How do you possibly put a number on...
Bentham tried, yeah.
Is it some sort of equation or something? Or?
Yeah, a big old equation, yeah. It gets into maths quite quickly.
Let's get into some maths with Jeremy Bentham.
Yeah, well, I mean, so why I sort of want to talk about utilitarianism and why I think it's really important is that I think the more you read the news, particularly in 2020, 2021, you realise that utilitarianism is the primary moral compass of governments.
Everyone get a vaccine.
Well, we had to suddenly think like utilitarians as like normal members of the public, and we realise, if you don't take a vaccine, if you do wear a mask, if you don't wear a mask, we're suddenly having to think in terms of like, but my action will have effects on many other people. It's in contemporary debate about society. Do we let some people die for other people's freedom? And we as a population have been suddenly have to think like philosophy classes, and people aren't ready for it because we've not looked at it.
You're absolutely right.
People, you'll see the level of debate down the pub or like on the message boards. It's like, oh, well, we can't do this. Somebody will die. And it's like, yeah, everything that you do means that somebody somewhere will die, at least through acts of omission.
Yeah, I mean, that's been one of my really...
I'm a comedian when I don't do this.
It's been one of my absolute bugbears.
I love it.
It's been one of my bugbears of the whole pandemic is that there's been a trade-off painted where it's been, listen, either you lock down and lives will be saved, or you do not and lives will be lost. And it's like, no, because whatever happens, lives are going to be... If you lock down, people's lives will be lost due to, missed appointments, due to, the well-known established rate of economic depressions and suicides alone will kill more people than what COVID has done. So it's really messy to sort of, compare one with the other, compare one option with another.
It's really interesting that you're saying that they're asking people to kind of take a philosophical stance every day. And people don't know that they're doing it. Obviously, people don't realise that they're doing it, but they kind of, the hand is being forced. Whichever way, I think you lean to on this one, your hand is forced, your hand is definitely forced kind of one way or the other. Like, if you're like, look, get the vaccine, get it in me, if you do that, you're like, I'm doing it for the greater good, and I'm kind of doing it to protect myself, but I'm kind of doing it more for the greater good because then I might not give it someone else because I might have a bit less COVID in me. It just feels so floppy.
But
enough about the argument. Let's hear about.
But the thing is, as well, is in order for you to make your own personal decision based on a utilitarianism approach, or based on any approach for that matter, you have to believe that what you are being told is true. Yeah. So you have to believe that this vaccine will do what it's told, that it will save people, it will, save lives and everything. And because of the way that the government has acted, people have very little trust in what they're being told. And so it makes it even harder for you to quantify and sort of work out, okay, well, I should get this because it will save these people. Because if you don't believe that that there's a difference, or if you believe that the effects of COVID are greatly exaggerated, or whatever it is that you happen to believe, then that will naturally feed into the formula that creates your moral principle and, affect it.
It can't help but, I feel like, it can't help, it just, every way, it just takes it right back, takes it sort of back to the basics, like, every single time with it. Like, if you do, I'm trying to say, it's almost like you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Let's take me for example. Let's take me. Okay, now I have got I've got a heart condition. I will not be taking this vaccine for a good while, until I feel a lot more secure within it, because I believe it was pushed out quick. I mean, as I've sort of mentioned before, normally there are they have test groups in poverty-stricken Africans, and they've not had the chance to do that this time. They didn't. Normally that happens under the radar for about a year and then it's out. But no, they didn't have a chance to do that. So the vaccine just came straight out. And because...
Came straight through me. I was in the trial.
Was you?
Out of Oxford, yeah.
There you go, man. Well, it's kind of like a...
He seems okay.
I had it up the nose. That was wild.
You had the vaccine up the nose?
The vaccine up the nose, yeah. I went in, they give you this card, no word of a lie, card with your vaccine number on it. Walked to this office, credit card. I was like, I think I'm here for my line of AstraZeneca. No, they squirt it up there with a water pistol. Jesus. But they do have a sense of humour. But
wow. That's crazy. Well, that's it. Okay, well, you were one of the few test subjects. Normally, there's a much bigger field, and it happens with people deemed to be less important. Whereas no, that hasn't happened this time. So I feel like it happened. It's all come out so quick. For me, for somebody who a blood clot would just fucking end, I do not want to do this.
Can I tell you what happened when I got mine? I've only had one jab, but I've had COVID as well, and I've been led to believe that coronavirus plus one jab is like a higher level of immunity than two jabs and no vaccine. So I'm pretty well immune at this moment, right? So I'll tell you what happened.
What is this from? What's that?
So,
is that?
I'll tell you what happened.
Okay.
Right. So I went in, and I am somebody, by the way, who is absolutely fine with needles. I'm covered in tattoos. I don't have a problem with any of this, right? So I go in, and they say, okay, you're here for your first or your second? And I say my first, and they give you that little card, and you fill it out like a little fucking thing. And then you queue up, and then you go into this, room where a nurse is sat, and she sits down, and she goes, right, okay, is this your first one? And you go, yeah. And they go, right, okay, I've got some questions to ask you, right? Have you ever been pregnant? And I'm like, no. No. And they go, have you, ever fucking had a blood clot? And I go, no. And they go, are you allergic to Dexa, Faxa, Waxa, Claxaclylin? And in my head, I'm going, I don't know what that is. But I'm like, I just figure that if I was allergic, that I'd know about it. So I was like, nah. And she's like, are you allergic to Faxawaxi Laxiclon? And I was like, nah. Are you allergic to No, like that. And she goes, right, okay, cool. And she goes, yeah.
It's a classic Norwegian substance, that.
She was, it's actually named by a sim. So anyway, she injects me, and then she goes, right, okay. What I want you to do is go over there for... wait over there for 15 minutes in this room. And I go, okay, cool, why? And she goes, oh, because some people, if they are allergic, then they get anaphylactic shock. And obviously we need you to be around when you get anaphylactic shock so you don't die. And I go, okay. But in my head, I'm thinking, I should probably tell her that I was not even listening when she was listing out what I was allergic to. I was gone. So I'm sat down like this, and I'm like, I should have probably mentioned this. I was like, this is going to be a really interesting 10 minutes. And so I'm like this, and it was the time when you still had to wear your masks.
Yeah.
And so I'm like this, and I'm waiting, and it's because it's one of those things that the minute that somebody says, we're just going to see if you have anaphylactic shock, you start going like you start in your throat, every little bit of dryness or anything like that you feel, yeah, exactly, and so I'm sat there like this, and I can feel my throat like this, and I'm like, it's clearly in my fucking head, stop being a pussy, come on, let's get on this. And I'm like this, and I can feel it, and I'm like, oh dear God. And so I get my phone out, right, and I'm like, well, what I'm going to do is distract myself from being on my phone, by being on my phone.
I thought you were going to look up Dexo, Mexo.
No.
Floyd,
Heaven forbid. So I'm there, and I'm looking at Twitter, and I'm looking at fucking football transfer news or whatever, and I could see my field of vision just starting to go a little bit. And I'm like, oh, don't fucking faint. Don't faint. Don't do it. And so I go, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a glass of water, because I'm going to get a glass of water, and then that way I'm going to sip the water, and that's going to prove that my throat's fine, and that's going to sort my stupid fucking head out, right? So I go to stand up to ask for a glass of water, and my field of vision goes from being about 80% to about 20%. It just goes, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to faint in front of. So I go to this woman and I go, could I get a glass of water? And she looked at me and she went, yep, sure. And she potted into the back to get a glass of water, and I followed her into the back, right? And then she went into the back, into like the staff room, poured out a glass of water, turned around, saw me, and she went, oh, sorry, you're not meant to be in the back. And I went, oh. And I went to turn, and I just went, right? And I steadied myself against the wall, like, oh, fuck, you know. And she went, just lie down for me. And I went, no, I'm fine. She went, just lie down for me. And so I led down in a corridor, right, next to the staff room, like this. And I had this glass of water, and she went, I'm just going to get a doctor, like this. I was like, oh, God.
Was she as sinister as you're making out?
Yeah, oh, yeah. And so I'm
such a micro difference in tone between sexy and sinister, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just lie down. For me.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah. So I'm led down, right, this, and the doctor comes over, checks my pulse, and he's like, oh, yeah, you all right? How are you feeling? I was like, look, really, I just felt a bit faint, that's all, do you know what I mean? And he's like, all right, okay, cool. And he starts talking to me for a couple of minutes, and I'm like, I don't need a fucking doctor. And so I went, listen, mate, I said, I appreciate you talking to me and everything like that, but, you know, you're a doctor, you're a very busy person. I'll just stay here for 5 minutes. I'll be fine, honestly. And he went, yep, thanks. And then just like he was waiting for me. So he was like, yep, nice one. And so he left. Hell. And so I'm sort of like, I got up for a minute and I felt a bit dizzy again. And I led back down, but I'm led in a corridor next to a staff room, and people at one point this woman stepped over me and I was like, I'm being such an imposition here. And so at my first possible opportunity I downed this water and I stood up like this, and I still felt a little bit groggy, but I was like, I've got to fucking get out of here. And so I found this somebody who worked there. I handed them the glass, thanked them for the water, and they went, oh, we've just got to get the doctor to check you over before I go. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. And so I went into the doctor's room and they went, doctor, the man who nearly fainted wants to go. And the doctor didn't even look up. He went, yeah, no worries, like that. And I just had to leave. But I felt like such a little pussy. I felt awful.
You've had such a male response to a medical situation.
You think?
Like if you've just had like a drug put in your body, you've like collapsed to the ground about it. And your predominant, it would be the same for me as well, mate. My predominant thing would be like, oh, I hope this isn't embarrassing. Yeah, I really don't want to look. I don't want to look bad. Whereas what we should be doing is like, oh, I should just like let the doctor help, stay along for a little bit. No. My response would have been exactly the same. It's like, I'm going to style this out. I'm gonna go down slowly. I'm gonna try and look upright. How
much of my throat would have had to close up before
That's wow. The fact that you couldn't get out quick enough, that you wanted to get out, and even then you decide that's the fact that you did, and you thought, no, do you know what? I guess I should. They were like, no, do you know what? Please go and check. And the guy was like, yes, you can fuck off. Yeah, that's incredible. That is fucking negligence of the highest order.
But the thing is, though, so I read about this online afterwards because I was really interested in what happened to me. Because I'm not afraid of needles. I have no phobia of them or anything like that. I say, I'm covered in tattoos and shit. So it's not like I have that worry about it. Apparently, there is a well-documented phenomena that if you have a surge of adrenaline just before or just after an injection or a vaccine, that in itself is enough to make people faint temporarily.
Right.
So the fact that she was like, okay, well, we're just going to test you for anaphylactic shock, that was enough to trigger whatever weird response, that there is. Anyway, utilitarianism. Yeah, this podcast, like I mentioned to Vince before, it's as much about the journey as the destination.
Oh, of course, man.
Are you into utilitarianism as a principle and a set and a way of living your life? Do you think it's helpful?
Not necessarily. No. I mean, yeah, it is. But I think you've done philosophy yourself. It's like all these different philosophical theories are taught as like complete rivals. If you ever meet anybody who's like if you ever meet anybody who is a pure utilitarian, like I'd be kind of worried about that man.
Yeah.
Or that woman, like
dictator.
It's a numbers game.
You said that man, and then you corrected yourself, and that woman.
Yeah. But indeed anybody who doesn't identify as a gender.
But it would certainly be a bloke. It would. It's such a bloke thing to be like, no, that helps the most people. You can all fuck off. Do you know what I mean? I think that it's one of those things where it feels like a philosophy that kind of gets rid of feelings almost and just kind of goes, well, that does the most good, we'll do that.
Well, it sort of puts feelings right at the centre of it, but says, right, that's where we need to get to. Everybody needs to be feeling good. Let's not feel anything up until that point. It's about cold reason.
Where does Thanos' snap fall on the scale of utilitarianism?
This is a level of knowledge about Game of Thrones.
This isn't Game of Thrones.
Thanos means death. Thanos is Marvel Universe. Marvel Universe.
The basic premise is he snaps his fingers, half the universe just dies because of overpopulation.
Got it.
And that's it. And that's his only. As soon as it did it, he just went off and died. Went off and retired until he died.
That's known as Derek Parfit's repugnant conclusion.
Wow.
In academic philosophy.
Okay.
This idea that it is not necessarily morally evil for destruction of large numbers of sentient beings.
And his name is Derek Parfit.
Yeah, it's less good than Thanos.
Derek Parfit.
Derek walks on.
Imagine if you got mass genocide committed by Derek Parfit. No, Derek Parfit. Your name is like the biggest crime that a Derek Parfit has ever committed is like, you know, maybe encroaching on his neighbour's land by 3/4 of an inch, an overgrown hedge or something like that. Yeah. So he says it's not necessarily wrong to wipe out.
So the repugnant conclusion is this idea that, like, if we want to, that like ethics gets really complicated. This is a podcast, so I can't refer to what's just happened visually.
But it gets recorded as well. It gets recorded. I accidentally activated the recliner and shit myself a little bit.
Buckle in.
Everyone sees that. Yeah.
Go on.
Is that population ethics gets weird, and so if you want to maximize like utility, one way to maximize utility, you kind of hear this in sort of arguments for and against vegetarianism, right? And so some meat eaters would say, well, it's right to eat meat because it's better that animals' lives exist, even if they're short and nasty, because it's better to exist. Better to have 1 billion chickens living, just lives worth living, than it is to have a couple of free-range hens walking about that are really happy.
I mean, I am a meat eater myself, and even I think that is a fucking stretch. Even I think that's a stretch. Because, right, if you were to take that conclusion to a human level... Yeah. Right. Let's say that there was a woman who was heavily pregnant with a baby that had like 1 in a million syndrome or whatever, and the doctors were like, "Hey, listen, you are going to we can give birth to this baby, but it's going to live for an hour, and then it is going to die in excruciating pain." Or option 2, we can just abort it now. You'd have to have a psychopath of a mother. In fact, I would argue that no mother would go, well, 1 hour's better than nothing.
So what's difficult about things like the repugnant conclusion is that if you look at like sentient creatures in nature, if we're referring to like animals, like what's that Mitch Hedberg joke? Like if you fell into the sea, all you would hear if you spoke fish was screaming. They're getting eaten like all the time, man. The lives of fish are like horrible, right?
Yeah.
And so like if you had that Thanos' click, like is it the moral thing to do to end the lives of most creatures on Earth because their lives aren't worth living?
No.
But is that consistent with your previous statement that it would be right to abort the life of the child? It's the 1 in a million syndrome.
I guess it's who decides that, isn't it? I mean, who gets to kind of make that
decision. Derek and or the government.
Derek, but I like the way
that sounds like the coolest band from the 80s.
Derek
I like
and
the way
or the government.
I like the way they prefaced it with like repugnant as well. There's no.
Oh yeah.
No repugnant findings.
Derek was definitely.
It's a good word, isn't it?
Derek the.
It's great if you want to get refunds. It's like, this is repugnant. It's like, oh, I don't know what that means, but I think we need to give him a refund.
Derek was definitely thinking about the potential of having himself cancelled, and so he was like, I better call this the repugnant.
No, I don't think so. I reckon the findees discovered it. This is fucking repugnant.
There's a dude.
He's going to kill everyone.
There's a dude who's one of my favourite, I say one of my favourite philosophers. I don't really like him, I just think he's funny. Bishop Berkeley.
Yeah, indeed.
He's basically
George to his friends.
Yeah, old Georgie boy. So his basic thing was that things exist because we perceive them. Again, this is coming back ages. And if you were to stop perceiving something, then said thing would cease to exist. And he, sort of threw that out there. And someone went, "What about God?" And he went, "Oh fuck, I'm a bishop, shit." And then he slightly reworded it to be like, no, God's different. God actually perceives all things, and that's why all things exist. I'm going to be quiet now. And it was like, sweet. That's not really what happened, is it? You're dying to tell me otherwise.
No. It's close enough. It's close enough.
I just thought it was so funny how it was like, that's a great theory, and then people was like, you are aware of the consequences. Oh shit.
So what? So the basic thing around is if you can't see something, it's not there.
Yeah,
you've got it.
Like,
basically,
so basically, like that.
Yeah, the whole world now is gone. So do it again.
Like the ravenous bug bladder beast from the Douglas Adams thingy.
Yeah, so if you just do it again, cover your eyes, and we've all ceased to exist.
Oh, man. Okay.
But we haven't really, because everything's perceived by God.
How am I going to get home? Oh, God. Right.
Imagine if, like, debt charities use that as a way of getting out of debt. You know, like listen, okay, so you have an IVA, you have bankruptcy, or there you go, everyone's gone.
I'll be honest, like, there's a few debt collectors I have run off from. But so all right, so I guess with this, it's like, I don't know, like kind of.
Here's the thing that I wanted to very quickly talk about.
Please do.
So you mentioned that, like, especially utilitarianism during COVID. Has COVID at any point for you made you question your moral code of ethics and made you question what you previously thought was a fairly tight way that you viewed the world? I'll give you an example, right? So I myself am various shades of libertarian, which is why I have an issue with utilitarianism, because it kind of goes against what I think people should be allowed to do or whatever. So, various shades of left-wing, libertarian. But for me, I'm constantly thinking about, issues like the environment and stuff like that, and markets and things, whereby, my idea of libertarianism doesn't really work. And so, I'm constantly questioning what the line is. But during COVID, there were times when particularly at the beginning of COVID, there were times where I was like, oh my fucking God, what? Because for me personally, sort of my belief structure was always based around the idea that if you leave human beings alone, by and large, they sort of know what's best for themselves and they don't need to be forced to do it. And I think that COVID has taught me on several occasions that is not the case. And it's strange because I'm not sure why, because I've constantly seen people acting against their best interests on such a regular basis that I've lost count.
Like how?
Okay, so for example, when it was late March time, early April time, when we didn't know what this virus was.
Yeah.
When it was, stay at home. Let's all stay at home and socially distance. And people were like, or hear me out, I could go cycling. And it's like, what? But
Brighton Beach.
Well, this is it. So it makes sense that at the very beginning, when we didn't know what it was, we'll all stop home, we'll all stay away from each other, and we'll all just work out what this is. And people were like, no. And I can't work out whether or not, for me, that is because my belief system is inherently wrong and people are thick as fuck and they don't know what their own best interests are, or whether or not it is because the media has manipulated people to such an extent and mistrust is so high that people can't act within their own self-interest because they do not know what their own self-interest is. So I'm kind of like, that's the space that I'm at. So I was wondering whether or not at any point during COVID, you looked at utilitarianism and you were like, this is a crock of shit. This can't work.
I mean, it reminds me why it's sometimes taught as it needs to be a private morality, some people say, because it doesn't work. It's anti-democratic, some people say, because it's people aren't very good with it. People are very, very, very bad at weighing up probabilities and judgments. And what was so weak about the UK response to COVID was, better comedians than me have done impressions of this when it was like, stay at home, but go to work, unless going to work is bad. We had to make these calculations all the time where we have to weigh up a risk for a disease that was novel to us, that the man behind the microphone didn't understand himself. And we were asking people to make decisions that are just too difficult. Right and good people could not make those decisions.
Yeah.
They needed more guidance, and they did not get that guidance, and people died because of it. It's not good. It's not nice. And it was bad, man. It was really, really, really bad. Yeah. That's one of the weaknesses of, like, everybody's got the libertarian aspect in them, right? In the sense, like freedoms are good. Freedom is really, really, really important, but we need guidance as well, man.
Do you know what I thought was interesting is like, because we went back to how do you properly quantify the level of goodness or the level of happiness, right? So there are some people who are clinically very vulnerable due to disabilities or comorbidities or however you want to call it, who, for them, catching COVID is a death sentence. It'll absolutely fuck them, right?
Yeah.
So should 1 million people stay inside and curtail their enjoyment to save one person like that?
It's just the opposite of utilitarianism, isn't it? Or is it?
Well, is it? It's the key thing is it's a utilitarian question.
Right, okay.
It's a utilitarian question to be like, how much suffering of many justifies this one death?
Right, yeah.
And what was, I think, shocking to people is that like this is the way that a hospital is run every day.
Yeah.
Like there is somebody somewhere who chooses via budgets who lives and who dies.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's shocking to people. It's shocking that like somebody somewhere with a budget and a purse string chooses whether you do 100 hip operations one year or whether you go for that extra cancer drug for that one kid. Like, and I could never do it. Like, I don't like the level of like strength of like will to think, yeah, I'm going to make that decision. It's why I'm a comic.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you go back to the whole like one person could die, 1 million people have to stay at home. Your first reaction is, well, okay, listen, you staying at home is an inconvenience, and it's, it might impact your mental health, but generally speaking, it's just going to put you in a bit of a bad mood for a while. This one person dying, they will be dead. So how about you all just fucking suck it up for a little bit? And it's like, okay, but there are so many variables at play. How long do we all stay inside? A week, a month, a year? And then you have to think about, well, everyone's staying inside. That's not just impacting on them. That will impact on the hospitality industry, for example, in ways that will put millions of people out of work. Mm-hmm. And you can't possibly say that having millions of people out of work and financially bankrupt and bereft and all of the things and the issues that go along with that, you can't possibly say that justifies the life of one person. You can't.
It isn't. Well, strictly speaking, it isn't just one person, though, is it? I mean, it's kind of. It's people. It's the vulnerable. And
totally.
And there are sort of quite a lot of them. But I get what you're saying. I get exactly like. Are you going to ask 1 million people? Well, that's the thing. Is kind of like. But then you get like, say, people kind of. I think people who are medically vulnerable do have the right to speak out and say, no, you should all stay in. You should all do that. But also, I think that kind of the other people have got the right to say. Should we though, all of us?
Yeah, I mean, I was just sort of saying 1 versus 1 million, so that you get a really clear discrepancy over one. But in actuality, there's millions of vulnerable people, and there's millions, so it's more complicated. Totally, and and you know what as well is I think whatever side of the fence you sit on is depending on your personal, what your life is like. So, for example, if you if you owned a restaurant and, you had kids to feed or whatever, then you'd be pretty fucking, you'd be like, well, hang about, even from a utilitarian approach, this is affecting me so much. Whereas if you were somebody who, I don't know, had a job that was unaffected by lockdowns, let's say you were an accountant, but your mum and dad were both extremely clinically vulnerable, you'd be like, well, hang the fuck about, I might lose my mum and dad. So I always think that with utilitarianism, it's so hard to have a viewpoint that is completely untainted by either side.
Oh yeah, completely. And the other issue this really ties into, particularly on a global sense, is that it's about democracy. Like, we forget that we are in a democracy sometimes, and we have to, as a collective, decide what freedoms we're going to protect, what freedoms we're going to let slide. And that's both the beauty and the curse of where we live. And there's a great experiment going on globally now where those states that weren't particularly democratic, People's Republic of China, seem to have done much, much better on this issue. They protected more lives of their people. You might say, well, that comes at a great cost. I worry about the global march of democracy. I thought it was an important thing. When I was growing up, like people wrote books about the end of history, which was supposed to be about the triumph of democracy. It was done. But one of the worries is that, like, I don't know, like, there's a lot of morons about Freddie. You know what I mean? There's a lot of morons about. I was teaching a class, and bless him, this is actually a clever kid. He really worked it out in the end. But like, I was doing a lesson on democracy, and I was like, class, democracy is incredible. I was like, democracy is over 2,400 years old. And this kid, he stuck his hand up and he went, sir, that's not right. I was like, oh, amazing. Maybe this kid's done some extra homework. Maybe he knows ancient Greek democracy. It didn't include women, so it can't be real democracy. I was like, oh, brilliant, fantastic.
Where were you teaching for this?
I was teaching this in the Down School. I shouldn't mention that. Oh, never mind. Anyway, doesn't matter.
The what?
A school in the south of England. I shouldn't mention the school in the podcast, just in case.
Okay.
So what? Go on.
It's just an ordinary secondary school. And I'm teaching about
Despite its name.
Despite its name. Yeah, it's despite its name. So I live in an area of the country called the Downs, not to be confused with Down House, where the Queen,
well,
Queen's about to go.
I had been confusing it with Down syndrome.
I was not teaching. Do you know what? Do you know what, Freddie? It's very good you picked me up on that.
Listen about democracy.
This anecdote could not withstand people being like, why is Farrow hating on people with Down syndrome? It's not that at all. This kid, and I also want to point out, this kid was actually quite sharp. He was having an off day at the end of this anecdote. He was having a real off day.
Sharp.
When it was the Down school, I was like, how insensitive is that to call it the Down school?
And I knew that it wasn't.
Just
I knew that it wasn't.
Thick as pig shit.
Go on, interesting, that school is in a place called Compton.
Oh, really?
It's the most rural.
It's Compton in Oldham.
Is there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's a Crompton. But there is a Compton. There's like a Compton in.
Is it a nice
in the south somewhere?
Is it a nice area or a bad area?
Crompton is like all of Oldham is a piece of shit.
Because I always think it's funny, like, you know, in Liverpool, there's an area of Liverpool called Kensington.
Yes.
And the Kensington that we all know is like, well, ooh-la-dee-da, whereas the Kensington in Liverpool is like, holy fucking shit.
I did a gig in Kenny one time.
Did you?
I remember it was the old Laughter House one. It was in a massive, like a bingo hall or something. Wow. Oh no, like an old. No, what it was, it was like it was a comedy club that had been converted. It was in one of those massive fucking dome type arenas that just appear in the middle of estates.
Mate,
it was one of them, and they were like, it used to be like just where everyone just went to cop off.
Yeah.
And now they go to a comedy night.
Oh Lord!
And I did a weekend at Christmas there.
Oh no!
It was.
Oh no!
It was so rough, man. It was so rough.
Do you know? I've been I've been driving Liverpool acts, like, you know, doing car shows and stuff. And on more than one occasion, I've stopped off for a cash point, not realised I was in Kensington, and they've said, no, you need to keep going. Like,
Drive.
Yeah. Anyway, what happened with this kid?
I don't know whether I want to finish the story now.
He was having an off day.
He's having an off day. To point out, this guy got an A at the end. He was just having an off day.
You feel really bad for calling him thick, don't you?
I feel bad for this kid.
It's funny because you're because obviously we've taught in different schools, right? And your definition of a thick kid is like one off day for an A-star pupil, and my definition of a thick kid is you know, can barely say their own name. Like,
well, we all fall into it, man. I remember when my history teacher showed me the Roman road near our house, and he was talking about the Romans and all that sort of stuff, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, it is an advanced civilization. Look at the tarmacking on this, incredible. Those Romans, unbelievable.
Do you know, I taught, so I used to teach English, right?
Road signs.
Yeah, it was like incredible. I mean, it's lights, traffic lights and everything.
Look at the shrubbery.
Look at that. M6, how did they know?
How much is that in old money?
Smart motorways.
It's originally been 5I. VI.
So I taught English, right? And what you do is, if you were teaching, particularly year 7 and year 8, where it doesn't really matter, what you do is, if you were teaching Shakespeare, rather than just launch into the fucking Tempest or whatever, you do a week about Shakespeare's life. And so you go, hey, look, this is the time that Shakespeare lived in. Look, that's the Globe Theatre, isn't that cool? And so you might do a lesson on the Globe Theatre, you might do a lesson on facts about Shakespeare.
This is gonorrhea.
Yeah, the idea is because if kids can write about, the Tempest or Romeo and Juliet, and they can feed it into William Shakespeare's life or what was going on at the time, that's called social and historical context, and it's like a big fucking tickaroo. You tell them about William Shakespeare and stuff. We did about a week on it, and then we started talking about the Tempest. Very fucking boring. I hate the Tempest. And we're doing it, and we're about 2 weeks in, and a kid puts his hand up, and this is a kid who never fucking talks or whatever or gets involved. Puts his hand up. So the minute he put his hand up, I was like, yes. And he goes, sir. I go, yeah. And he goes, was Shakespeare real? And I went, yeah. And he went, oh. And then that was that. That was that. So he thought for a week.
Listen to this one. Sir, was Einstein real? Yeah, Einstein was real. Why do you call him a theoretical physicist? It's either the cleverest thing I've ever heard or there's no stupid.
There's an understanding there. There's a real understanding there. Right, you got to tell us about this. This
anecdote. He's like, no, sir. It's not 2,400 years old. I'm like, why? What's going on? He's like, because, sir, there's only been 2,019 years.
Yeah. Oh my God! BC is going to blow his mind.
BC is going to blow his mind. Yeah, you just like
cranium.
Oh. Yeah, it goes back and forth. And, we've all had that moment, right, where you're just off on one, you've not been paying attention or whatever. I'm like, well, what about BC? And he's like, what does BC mean, sir? What does BC mean? I'm like, it just means before Christ. He's like, nah, that's where you and I differ, sir. I was like, what? It's like, sir, I'm an atheist. Jesus Christ, he never existed. So just to break this down.
Wow.
This guy's gone so far atheist, he's come out as a young earth creationist.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Took us a little while to correct him. But what the important thing was, he'd obviously just gone off on one. And it would have been so easy to make that kid feel stupid, right? Particularly mentioning.
And I would have enjoyed every minute of it.
But like a good teacher and a good story is about, I shared lots of stuff. I shared that like Roman road story. He was obviously embarrassed about how he got it wrong and stuff like that. But we can all do that. Right?
Oh,
I think like one of the best things about democracy is admitting you're wrong, giving a way out to people. Once you've got a firm stance, we so rarely allow other people to admit they're wrong, have a U-turn. Yeah. U-turning is the best thing that a politician can do. Every time the media's like, oh, this politician's U-turned, I'm like, great, good.
This politician...
Go, do you know what? I got it wrong, mate. Hands up.
This politician thought one way, and then there were new facts, and then they changed their opinion. It's like, that's what's meant to happen.
The wind blew in a different direction.
But the problem with that is when politicians...
donuts on the motorways, U-turning so much, maybe not. But.
The problem with that, though, is when politicians U-turn, but they aren't U-turning because of new facts and new data. Sure. They're U-turning because they've listened to what the public wants, and they've gone, oh, shit!
Because the wind has changed,
Yeah. It's, what's interesting about the whole democracy thing is I am not sure how sold I am on democracy.
So do you know what? You're not alone, mate. People I'm worried about it.
So
like,
who's that Hitler guy?
No. Well, for a start, I have long suspected that we would all be secretly happier if we lived in a dictatorship.
You are one of the floppiest libertarians I have fucking ever met, mate. You have U-turned so hard from the start. So, you know what? I consider myself a libertarian. What is it, like 10 minutes later? Do you know what? I've secretly thought we'd all be happy under a dictatorship.
But I have thought this for a long time.
I, for one, welcome with open arms.
Our new leaders.
Whoever the dictatorial
I have thought this. I have thought this for a long time, right? Is one of the things that I think leads to why people are so unhappy and there's so much unrest is because there is an illusion of choice in terms of... leaders and policies and just about fucking everything. And it's this idea that, let's take, for example, Brexit. So we had a vote and, 52% of people got what they wanted and 48% of people didn't get what they wanted. Now, those 48% of people that didn't get what they wanted, they did not go, oh, well, fiddle-dee-dee, democracy in action. What they did is they went, this is bullshit. We were sold on an incorrect thing. This is wrong. We need a recount. All these people who previously voted for it have died. This isn't the Brexit that we want. And even now, years and years and years and years later, there is still an awful lot of unrest among society around that decision.
A lot of those points you made were valid.
Sure, but there would not be any unrest if there was a dictator who went, guess what? We're leaving Europe. You got no fucking choice. Bye. Because you wouldn't have a choice in the matter. So that illusion...
That's not what's happened, is it?
But no.
What actually happens, though, is like you get a dictator, and for a little time, you're like, well, I mean, at least it's sort of kind of peaceful, you know, like... We just kind of get on with it, you know, what he says goes. But then all that unrest is being bottled up into what's known as revolutions, which really consistently occur under dictatorship.
Yes.
They're bloody and they're messy.
Very
It's like,
much so.
instead of having like that horrible discussion with somebody in the pub over Brexit, which is unpleasant, it's like all those unpleasant Brexit conversations in the pub have been distilled into one moment, and then people get rifles and they shoot each other. It's so much better this way to like pace out that pain.
You can say it's all. I think it would be better in a dictatorial system. I don't think you obviously, but that is said with the same confidence. But that's said with the same confidence. Of like people go, well, why would they experiment? I'll have them. It's the same thing. Like,
just to very quickly,
you've never lived in a dictatorial system.
Very quickly. I didn't say it would be better. I said that people might be happier because they remove the illusion of choice. So there's an illusion of choice that's been removed. And so
that's completely true. And if anything, yeah, you're right. That's kind of.
I mean, you never hear North Koreans complaining, do you?
No, you don't, mate. You don't. You really don't.
They all look dead happy.
They do.
From the 3 pictures we're allowed to see from Pyongyang.
That phrase, democracy is an illusion of choice, is straight out of the Kremlin.
Really?
Straight out of the. It's from the playbook of the current backlash against it. It is
really. So am I secretly?
Well, George Carlin was talking about that years ago, man. He was talking about said like they give you a vote is the illusion of choice. You don't have a choice. They've already divvied it all up. They're just giving you the illusion of choice and a show to watch for 3 months every 4 years. I mean, it's part of the same thing, isn't it?
I can't remember who said it. It might have been George Carlin who talked about how there's fucking 400 flavours of ice cream and there's 2 political parties.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I do think that
there's 400 flavors of ice cream because there are 2 political parties. I don't want to like defend like pre-fall of the Berlin Wall, but the reason that there was such consumer choice in America of the time of Carlin was because there were 2 political parties rather than one. Where in the world there was 1 political party, there was 2 flavors of ice cream.
Yeah. Well, and also as well, if there were more political parties, then you'd have fucking Ben and Jerry running for office.
That's the thing. Yeah, it kind of works the opposite way around.
So Rocky Road to the election
isn't like more political parties, better ice cream. People will leave this podcast being, what was Farrow on about?
Do you know what? If you run a campaign on more political parties, better ice cream, you get more votes than what you thought.
Go sure.
Well, this is my point. This is my problem with democracy, right? Is because deep breath. Some people are too stupid to be allowed to vote.
Yes.
It's the challenge, isn't it? It's the challenge.
Is that where you're gonna? Is that the hill you're gonna die on, Alex? It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Typical philosopher, innit?
But there is something to be said in it. There is something to be said that there are some people who are not informed enough to make a wise political choice.
Regardless who are we to decide that?
I reckon. Hear me out.
I'll do it.
Hear me out. Right, bottom 5% every 12 years. Right. So
Well, he's starting to talk dictator now. I know what that noise means.
So
that's when you start joking about killing off the population, isn't it?
Hand signal. Right. Here's what you do. Right. Yeah. First of all, take a test.
Oh God,
right? Yeah. So it's like a general knowledge test. No, it's like a political...
It's a pub quiz.
Yeah. Pub quiz. Secondly, now, we all know, as ex-teachers, both you and I, that there is a very famous quote...
Is the quiz language-based?
There's it can be whatever based.
Is it language-based? And also, is the knowledge within the quiz, is it like strictly kind of, is it very much from a democracy like ours? Or could you be from Mumbai and come down and still ace a test by being intelligent? Or would you need to know more about...
we'll sort that problem out when we come to it.
No, let's get... come on.
So, I mean, to be fair, I would argue that if I went to... I mean, you mentioned Mumbai. If I went to India and took a test, I reckon I'd still be confident of not being in the bottom 5%, regardless of what was on that test.
It depends what the test is, right?
Even if it was an urgent.
Oh, if the test was like fucking, how'd you get to New Delhi from here? Then I'd be fucked if I know. Step 1, airport. Step 2, ask in a loud English voice and hope someone helps.
IQ tests, there's never been a universal one.
Exactly.
You try and take out culture from it, you can't do it.
Step one test.
Anglocentric, monoculturalistic.
We all know.
We'll put a pin in that one, Vince, for a minute. We'll get on to murdering everybody now.
we all know, and again, as we are, both ex-teachers,
deleting the thick.
Deleting the thick's a great idea. We all know that there is a very...
That's my diet book.
There's a very famous... There's a famous quote, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking that it's stupid.
Yes.
Right? So the idea is that you can't base it on natural intelligence alone. Absolutely fine. You also have to take into account...
an assault course.
Well, it's a knockout. So I was thinking something like, do you remember Total Wipeout? You could film the whole thing, have Richard Hammond.
Is there a travelator?
Yeah. Oh, mate, there's massive balls that fucking 67-year-olds have to jump on.
Are we digging up Stuart Hall?
You are
gonna exhume Stuart Hall,
mate. And the money gets raised by this event gets put to charity, so it's for a good cause.
Which charity?
Which charity?
The bottom 12%.
Yeah. It goes towards producing the gruel that the bottom 5% have to live on when they get shipped out to the Isle of Orkney.
I'm going to do it this way. Okay, if you watch a soap every day, you're not allowed to vote.
Oh yeah, if you
don't get to vote.
You've ever voted for Love Island, you're not allowed to vote for this. It just gets cancelled out completely. You're not sold on this, Alex, are you?
I love Love Island, yeah.
I love Love Island as well.
Love Island is a fucking disgrace.
Have you been watching it this season?
Yeah,
it's rubbish this season, isn't it?
Why is there's good drama in it?
I don't know about it. Hey, do you know what? I'll tell you.
Like 3 people have killed themselves involved.
Yeah, that's pretty dark.
Like one of them being the fucking main presenter. That is why Love Island is shocking.
It's also why
shouldn't be allowed.
It's also why
I did Come Dine With Me, and I see why reality TV people question it. It is pretty intense.
Did you? Well, we actually.
I was on Love.
You were on First Dates, weren't you?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice man.
So here's a fun.
I'm in the upper echelons of reality TV. That's Love Island shit for me.
I was down to the. I was down to the last 20 people to be selected to do the circle for this year, and they cancelled.
I thought you were going to say Love Island.
They cancelled it.
Yeah.
No, you didn't think I was going to do Love Island.
No, I was hoping that was going to.
So here's a fun. Here's a fun fact.
I would have watched.
Well, right. Here's a.
Well, I love Pontoon or something. They're not quite big enough for
Let me tell you this.
Is that the circle? Is that the one where they all live in the flat?
Yes, but let me tell you this story.
My ex was into that.
So, a comedian friend of mine, Brennan Reese, managed to trick me that this year he was going on Love Island. And part of the reason that I watched so much of this season...
see Vince thinking, it's like, Brennan Reese, is he good looking?
He is good looking.
He's beautiful.
But he's not Love Island good looking. Right. So when he messaged me...
Wow.
I don't think that's...
Oh my God.
I don't think that's...
So Freddie, continue your story about your former friend, Brennan Reese.
No, I don't think that's... So,
Brennan, mate, you good looking enough. Don't listen.
Well, he messaged me to tell me that he was going on Love Island. Yeah. And I said, my initial thing was, fuck off, you're like 38, right? He's like 34. But that's still fucking way too old for Love Island, right? And he convinced me that he was like, no, they're trying something different this year, right? They're bringing 2 people into the villa who are not traditional Love Island contestants because there's so many people who are like, just vibe off personality. They want to see if that's true. So they're bringing him in as a comedian, but he's a bit older. And they're also bringing in a larger woman, like who's got a really bubbly personality for people. That's the word, isn't it? To vibe off. And
vivacious.
I believed this for weeks, right?
What disappointment.
I believed it for weeks because he'd been pulling gigs. He was also in Spain at the time, and he was on his Instagram. He was in Spain. And so I was like, mate, when are you going on? Because Love Island this year has been dog shit, but I've been carrying on watching it because I knew that he was going to get parachuted in at some point. I always be like, it's my boy. But mate, he just fucking sold me. He was doing an advert in Spain.
I reckon Twitter would have told you within 30 seconds of it happening. You could have skipped the
Yeah, but I want to know the backstory behind it and all the things at play in that.
Right,
but he completely fucking got me. I was totally believed.
See, to me, like, Brendan Reese is young. He's always been young to me because I'm a lot older than him. And because I remember, because back in the day, I mean, God, this was a while. I used to call, because he's always been brilliant. He's always been brilliant. But when he was younger, when he started maybe about 10 years ago or something, he was proper. He looked like a young Channel 4 presenter. So I used to call him T4. So I used to call him T4 all the time. So in my mind, he's still T4. So when he said like he was going to Love Island, I'm like, of course he's T4. T4 could go on Love Island.
34 is too old for Love Island nowadays.
Yeah, but he's a slip of a lad.
What do you mean? What?
He's a slip of a lad. I reckon.
Skinny.
I reckon he could go in. Wouldn't have to say, look, this is the personality one.
This is the personality one.
He wouldn't have to do that. He'd just go in. He's a charming guy, man. I reckon Brent could do it.
Well, we've talked about
campaign.
We've talked about reality TV shows on this podcast before. We've talked about episode 4. We talked about whether or not reality TV shows have a duty of care to their contestants.
Yes, they fucking do. And I don't think Love Island does that. I don't think Love Island does that. There was this thing. Sorry to.
No, it's fine.
There was a thing. I was chatting to someone, a comedian, well-known comedian. She worked on the Jeremy Kyle show.
Okay.
Was a runner on the Jeremy Kyle show, chatting to me about that.
I feel like we had you in for the wrong episode.
Well, we were chatting about that, and I'm always saying we're on the wrong day. Like, we were chatting about that, and she said basically what they would do is they would just leave. Also, and I spoke to like someone kind of who left there, who kind of was like a director of it as well. They're just like ethics just got to everyone. Basically, like, so what they would do is like they would leave a crate of beer because they're not allowed to give them drink. They'd leave a crate of beer in the dressing room,
like a sign that says "drink me."
Just leave like a table full of beer, like, and they just lay that. And what they would do the night before is they'd ring each other, they'd ring them and say, "What do you think's going to happen tomorrow?" She goes, "Well, I don't want to speak to Louise. She's a bit of a cow." Then they'd ring Louise and go, "Jenny says you're a bit of a cow, Louise. What do you think about that?" So then, but next time they meet, they're on stage, fucking bared up. Do you know what I mean? It was wrong. The show was wicked and wrong.
I mean, again, you can listen to episode 4 if you want to hear more of this. I mean, my personal belief and opinion on it is, I think that, for example, The X Factor and Jeremy Kyle is different gravy than Love Island or The Apprentice. I think Love Island and The Apprentice, you know what you're getting on. Do you know what I mean? I it don't matter how many people top themselves. I don't have any sympathy if you go on Love Island.
They're so young.
You know what
they're
you're going
so young. They're so young, and the glamour of it, the actual. I mean, it was. Let's say like you're 19, right? You're 19. And you're watching telly and all these beautiful people on telly, and it's sunny,
sure,
and they're all having sex. And that's everything you want as a 19-year-old. Of course you want to go on that show.
But I think,
you're not going to think,
again,
do you know what I mean?
When I said,
ready for this?
When I said I don't have any sympathy, I think that's a bit callous. What I meant is that I have far less sympathy for that than somebody who went on Jeremy Kyle and killed himself, because I think it's a different thing. Anywho, like I say,
I'm not Freddie's trying to move this on so hard.
I'm trying to do it because we've done it, because we've already done it. Okay. We've been there. Episode 4. Go and watch it. My next question
who did you have on
for you, we had former Apprentice star Lewis Ellis.
Okay. Which comedian?
Ray Bradshaw.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so we are going to quickly wrap this up by talking about the very famous trolley problem. Do you know what the trolley problem is, Vince?
No? What, the shitty wheel?
Got your pound stuck in it. Philosophers for years and years and years. How do you get the pound out of the stuck trolley?
What when it was pound notes?
I don't know what they did before the pound coin. But it's an age-old problem.
When you can just get your sustaining stuff.
Explain to us the trolley problem, please, Alex.
Now,
fellowship.
Most difficult thing about a trolley when you're teaching kids is you got to tell them, forget the word trolley.
Think of the word train.
Think of the word train. They really get stuck on that for some reason. Partly because a trolley isn't like an old-fashioned term for a type of train. Anyway, imagine some train tracks, 2 train tracks going down, let's say a hill. There's a trolley, aka a train, racing down. You are the controller. You've got this lever. You see, as this train is hurtling down the tracks, you see it's going to run into 5 of your co-workers, 5 workers on the track. Mm-hmm. You've got to make the decision, do I pull that and save the 5 people working on those tracks, but it's going to go on a different track and it's going to kill somebody else, one other person on some different tracks. Do you, Vince, pull that and kill that one to save those 5?
Well, everybody on the train is going to be okay.
Yeah, it's good.
The trolley, everybody on the
There's
trolley.
no one on the train. The train's like a fucking cargo train.
Okay, just to consolidate it all there. So basically, so it's train on the trolley is going down on the tracks. One way is co-workers, the other way is one person.
One person.
Yeah.
5 versus 1.
So 5 versus 1. That's... Well, I mean, obviously it leads back to the same argument we've been discussing this whole time, haven't we? But
Yeah, this is utilitarianism.
And it's distilled.
I've got something to say about the trolley problem. Some people are always like, it's the first question you do on a philosophy course quite often. And people, the criticism of philosophy all the time is like, oh yeah, but when would this matter? When would this matter? This is all that ivory tower stuff. Do you know when it matters?
All the time.
All the time, particularly because the stuff we've been talking about. It is literally somebody's job right now to be programming the driverless car to make that decision.
Yeah.
And that person probably hasn't had any philosophical training. They're probably a master coder, but all of AI is having built into it ethical codes, and at no point is anybody being like, do you want to check whether you should do this? Yeah, maybe we shouldn't just give all the power to data companies.
Yeah.
Google's motto. Do you know what Google's motto is?
Helping you and paying tax.
No. Do you know, Vince? It's important. This.
See it, say it, search it.
Search it.
It's happening to trains. I think it's good. It's catchy.
I think it was stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. Is that?
No, see it.
No, this is all good. This is all good.
No, it's see it, and we'll sort it. Fucking sinister as fuck is what it is.
You want to hear sinister? Google's motto is "Don't be evil."
Wow. Okay.
The people that have all of your data, that's everything you've ever typed into the internet, Vince. Everything. They have it stored somewhere. Their motto is "Don't be evil." If you walked into a school and its motto was "Don't hurt the children,"
if you saw
you wouldn't work at that school.
If you saw like if you were walking through a graveyard and on one person's epitaph it said like "I never fucked a baby," you'd be like. Bet I know what that guy did. Yeah. Bet I fucking know.
Do you know what? I think there's actually a bit of humour behind that. Don't be evil. That makes sense because I won't listen. I don't for a second think that every single digital step I've made is in some way logged somehow, somewhere. Yeah. Not that anybody fucking cares about it, but I know it's stored there for information. I like that. Like it's just be like. If there was the bottle, I bet above the top of it, it's just like that thingy, like what's it just something like, don't be evil.
Yeah, but don't be evil sounds
unless
like
you're feeling lucky.
It sounds like the motto of like a company in like BioShock or something like that, like a dystopic fucking game.
Yeah. But this is the thing: is if they meant it, is as if they meant it. Like surely every sinister ring of anything anywhere could be immediately just, you know what I mean? Like if they really meant like don't be evil, I was like, oh, don't be evil, guys, because we're probably not going to catch it.
I like the idea that there's a programmer working really, really hard on a new project, and his boss comes over and he goes, "It's great work, Jonathan, but what about our motto?" He's like, "Oh God, well, yeah, I guess it does go against." Send. So right, let's go back to this. Right, trolley problem. Right. Yes. Train going down the track. The track splits into two. Yeah. As it stands, the track is going to mow over 5 people, but in front of you, you have a lever that you can pull.
5 co-workers.
5 co-workers.
So let's just say like 5 comedians.
Yeah, no, but it's got to be people.
So you're like,
it's got to be people whose lives matter. So
black. 5 black comedians. Or one,
mate. That's the whole circuit. You get on telly if they go. Fucking leave it.
So it's Lenny Henry.
That's the entire of Up the Creek's roster.
Lenny Henry, Che Burnley, me, Dana Alexander, and
oh God, Mo Gilligan, he be gone.
And Dan Nightingale's American accent. There you go. There you go. There's everyone. Mo Gilligan, yeah, Mo. Yeah.
So yeah, just say 5 random people, right? Or you can pull the lever and the track will change. On the other track, there's just one person. What do you do?
What colour are they?
Red.
Yeah, they will. Mode.
Yeah, they will be in a minute.
No, okay, right. So I suppose it depends. Okay, if it was 5 co-workers, I don't know. I guess it'd be like, well, I've got to face them. Well, what matter would it? Okay, well, I've got to face during the inquiry.
I was about to say, means in this, you don't have to face them.
That's 5 families I've got to face. No, well, it's just.
It's also 5 less fucking emails to contend with.
Okay, right. Well, here's the thing. But you're talking about like snap decision, aren't you? It's not like you're going, do I, don't I? It's a snap decision you got to make, and in that decision, I think you would just go with what you were closest to. You know, you go, okay, sorry, Doris, you got to go.
So you go with 1.
I would save my co-workers.
You'd say 5,
but not if they were comedians.
Okay,
they could all fucking die.
So I would argue, and I've always sort of thought this with the trolley problem, is it's presented as killing 5 people or killing 1. Okay, but I would argue that your actual choice
we didn't start this train
is killing nobody or killing 1. Because those
if
5
you're active in it. Okay.
Because those 5 people would have died anyway, regardless of whether or not you were there. So you're actually, by doing nothing, it's always presented that by doing nothing, you're killing 5 people. But actually, those 5 people are dying anyway. Like, they're about to die. It's you pulling the lever actively kills that 1 person. Alex.
This is known as the difference between acts of commission and omission.
Oh,
so,
I didn't know it was a thing.
It's a thing, yeah. And so some people would say by omitting to act, you're not actively engaged in any form of murder. And by commissioning that act and moving the lever, you're committing murder. And so you're taking the idea that to omit is to not commit a crime.
Yeah.
Try me on this one. What's the most famous one? Probably, the drowning kid example.
Okay.
Now, you probably...
Oh, is it shoes?
Yeah.
Shoes I've heard this. Go on.
Yeah. And so you see a kid drowning in the river, right?
Okay. Don't know why I'm laughing.
He's just already off top. It's like, yeah, it happens every day, man.
Brilliant.
Anyway, so this kid's where are we? This kid's in the Mersey. We don't need to make it personal. Why do a local reference? So supposedly... there's this child drowning. You see a child drowning, but you, Vince, you, Freddie, you can save this kid. But to go in there, you're going to ruin your new, not Nikes, because we spoke about that at the beginning. You're going to ruin your new trainers.
Right.
You go in there and you go, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to fish them out. Could fish them out, but I'm not going to ruin my £200 shoes. Most people would say what, Vince, about that? That you are a moral monster not to wade in and take that child out.
Okay.
But... another scenario, you're walking past somebody outside the Oxfam charity shop. They're shaking their collection tin. They're saying, just £40 will save somebody from a monsoon, from a flood, wherever in the world it is. And you go, do you know what, mate? I'm not going to do that. Now, in one case, people have said you've committed murder, and the other case you haven't done. And it's both exploring cases of omission, where you admit to act. And now Freddie was omitting to act by not pulling a lever. In one case, you're omitting not to act just by walking by, not to ruin your shoes. In another case, you're omitting to act by not putting money in a thing. What is the difference between all those 3? Because they feel different to each and every one of us, right? But are they really different?
Well, what if
Freddie might say no, because he seems to have this position about omission.
What it feels like to me is that it's very much an of the moment thing, as we were saying before. Like if you're walking past a drowning child that you can see,
which we've worked out. Your first response is to laugh, which is
well, it's just like because he was just getting like those questions like, okay, now you can shag Jennifer Lawrence, but she's got fucking Dave Lawrence's face. You know what I mean? I think it's just getting like,
who's Dave Lawrence?
Mate, me dad's. Anyway.
Second one, definitely. I want to see your dad's mate.
You don't. It's a tough one. Anyway, just concentrate on the body. But right, so
doggy only. It's the only answer to that. Anyway.
Yeah, but you can hear him.
And you'd ruin your shoes. Anyway.
Right, okay, so this thing, okay, she passing, this is kind of what I'm getting, you passing, it's a child and it's drowning, and it's immediately there, obviously fuck your shoes, you're going to go in and you're going to do that. You're walking past somebody outside Oxfam and they're shaking its head, saying like £40 or so, that is the difference, that's not a real and immediate danger that's happening in your presence at that moment. You can't affect that. I mean, yeah, you could put £40 in that, but that £40 isn't going, that £40, hang on, that £40 is going to a fucking charity which is going to take its fucking monstrous cut out of it, and then at some point it might filter down.
So take that out. Pretend, for example, that you knew that this charity was wholly ethical and gave 100% of your money to that, because what you're doing is you're trying to reason with things that don't really matter. You go, oh, well, the charity takes a cut. That's not really what we're focusing on. What I find interesting is why is it that the issue of immediacy is so important to you? Why do you have to see human distress and suffering in order to be motivated into action?
I don't know. I'm an off the moment guy. I don't know what to say. Like, if something shit. I am that crisis guy. I guess I always have been. Like, some shit's going. I go into a calm and I just try and fucking deal with shit straight away. But maybe I don't long term plan. Maybe this is as well. But this is a.
So what I would do if I saw the child drowning, and I can't overstate this option enough, is to take my trainers off.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Smart man. Take them off, put them in a nice little pile, and then go. Well, look. My thing is with the trolley problem.
Don't put them in a pile. Let's put them one on the other.
With your
shoes.
With your
don't want to ruin them, mate.
With the trolley problem, your action, if you like, to save the 5 kills the 1.
Yeah.
Okay. And having ruined trainers is not the same as having the death of a person on your hands. It's not the same.
Or 5.
So yeah, or 5. So it's not the no, because I would argue that the death of the 5 is never on your hands. Because if they were going to die anyway, then why should it be on you? You're not
because I would argue because your inaction was responsible for the death of those 5 people.
But those 5 people would die anyway.
Yeah, I know. But those 5 people could have been saved by you.
On Love Island when their defence, I'm going there. On Love Island, where the defence on one of the challenges is like, it was a challenge, and I snogged another girl.
She really wanted to win.
But, but the response is always like, they approached me. They pulled me, like, as though they weren't the active partner.
Yeah.
Like, if your partner was, who is it? Dave, but with Rachel's body. Whoever your partner is, whatever, they go off. And you're like, I wasn't an active part. I wasn't active in it.
My partner is not Dave with Rachel.
Dave Lawrence. Your partner, Dave Lawrence, Vince, as you were mentioning earlier.
Well, yes,
like, if you were like, it's okay, they slept with somebody else, but the other person was on top. They weren't active.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you wouldn't have any. It's like, well, he didn't do anything. It's just you just lay there erect.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be like, that lever was pulled. Even if you weren't pulling
That's what I was reaching.
There we go.
I just love the idea of just being led perfectly still, but completely erect and going, I am not an active participant. This technically doesn't count.
You're just on Peter Singer, the utilitarians on the phone all the way through. I was like, yeah, no, omission and commission different.
Yeah, I do think I do think that the thing is interesting though, but I don't think that the moral obligation of saving a drowning child, even though it's ruining your shoes, is the same as saving 5 to with 1. Like I don't think it's, what would you say, congruous. That fucking word came out somewhere in the back of my head, didn't it?
You were angry at that word.
Yeah, I was.
You were unhappy.
I was angry that it's been hiding for so long.
Is it one of those words that's got 2 U's, like congruous, or is it just congruous?
I don't believe it.
CONGRUOUS.
I think it might be one of those words that is only has the denial of it, isn't it? Like incongruous.
Congruous.
Anyway, here's the thing, right? So you save your 1, you save the 1. So you save the 5 and kill the 1,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
What about? Let's just mix it up a little bit.
Let's make it like, what about? It's the 1 was the real.
We're making it. We're changing it a little bit.
Okay.
The 1 is the leading cancer researcher in the UK, in the world, and is pretty fucking close to a cure.
And the other 5 are comedians.
No, the other 5 are comics.
They are fucking dead.
They're dead.
They are dead.
Okay. The one is just a normal person, just an old man called Frank who nobody really cares about.
Bye, Frank.
And the 5 are paedophiles.
Oh, right. Well, give me the full. Okay. Well,
because you said bye, Frank, a bit quick, didn't you? And then you went, oh shit.
bye, Frank. Hi, guys. High five.
High five. Oh god.
No. Okay. Well, I mean, we could do this all day.
Yes, and we are going
fine.
to
Okay,
close
yeah.
the doors.
Yeah, sure. Right. Okay. The pedos die.
Okay. Well, but
Frank lives. Frank lives.
But there's a more
This has
interesting...
been pigoted. Goodbye.
My name's Frank.
There's been a more the point behind this is not necessarily, like you said, we could do it all day, but the point
That's you that said that, not me.
at what point do human lives equate to one another? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well.
So is a criminal's life worth 0.1 of a law-abiding citizen's life? Is there any point where let's see, a criminal who's murdered somebody in the past but has lived the last 40 years as a fantastic upstarting member of his fucking prison Baptist church or whatever, is he or she or they in any way?
You can only really live in. I guess with that again, you can only really live in the present because that's the only time that we have, isn't it? The only time that we actually enjoy is the present. So if somebody is a bad pedo now, then maybe it's time for them. Whereas if somebody did something awful, like somebody killed somebody 40 years ago and it's been pretty sound in the prison Baptist church since, we're like, no, you're okay.
But why should they
right,
matter
Frank.
more? Why should they matter more than somebody who has always been sound?
Because, wait.
What? So why should their life be worth more than somebody who's always been sound? So if you have somebody who's never committed a crime,
Right.
surely you hold them in higher regard than somebody who murdered somebody when he was 20.
Not at all.
No?
I don't hold them in high regard, no.
So
I don't think so. It's as I said, it depends on the now. That person who's never broken a law in their life could just be a real fucking prick.
So here's a question for you then, and sorry because I'm sort of steamrolling over this, but it's one of my favourite things. So
it's just like
imagine
two thick dogs arguing over a bone.
It's not.
So can openers there, guys.
So one.
When you're steamrolling over this, is it the 1 or the 5 you're steamrolling over? I can't tell.
It's the 5, and I feel no guilt. So imagine one person on each track.
If you
right?
okay, yeah.
One person on each track. One person is normal, law-abiding citizen, always lived a good life, never done anything wrong. Other track
Cunt.
is criminal who murdered at 20, but ever since then has been an upstanding member of the community.
How old is he?
And here we go.
How old is he?
And well, I don't know, 50.
Okay.
They're both 50. Fuck it. As it stands, the train is going to mow down the ex-criminal unless you do the lever.
Unless I murder the law-abiding citizen.
Unless you murder unless you murdered Denzel Washington in law-abiding citizen. So
man.
do you make the switch, either of you? Do you do the pull?
No. Wait a second. So where is it? Its trajectory is to murder whom?
Its trajectory is to murder the ex-criminal unless you pull the lever.
Okay. I'm staying the fuck out of that.
Okay, but swap them around. So now its trajectory is to
Either way, I'm
kill
staying out of it.
So that's interesting, and that to me says that you place value on the pulling of the lever.
My analysis of Vince
place
there would be that
importance
those
on
two
the pulling
people
of the
are of increasingly equal value, right? Right. So it's less about omission and commission there, but my analysis, Vince sees those people as being too difficult to choose between.
So
it's less about the lever.
The pulling of the lever is definitely important. I wouldn't even say it's important to me. It's if it's something I've got to do, then or not do. If it's a task I've got to perform, then fine. I'll either do it or I won't. But if you're asking about the difference, the importance between, as you said, it's just.
Well, that's one of the things for me is that you have to assign a value to the action of pulling that lever, because that having the agency to make the decision is in itself worth something. And so you know, if people are you know, I hate to say it, but if there's two people who are too close to call, then the action of pulling the lever can be the separating fact, and people go, well, I'll just leave it.
Maybe. Yeah.
So does this relate? This relates kind of currently to sort of modern behaviour. Then does it? I would imagine, say post like, you know, post lockdown. Some people believe that, like, you know, when they wear the mask, like they're the one, they're doing it because they believe that they're doing the right thing, and others kind of, are we?
So you can relate all this back to like Corona again, right? It's in the sense of like the greatest utilitarian question at the moment is the question of like, do we vaccinate the younger population? This might be a more difficult question for you, Vince. I know you don't want to take it personally, but at a time when children, particularly those under 18, are very unlikely to become unwell from coronavirus, it can still happen, but very unlikely. Is it right to offer the vaccine to those people when people are dying right now in the developing world because of a lack of access to this medicine? And so that's something that as a democracy we could be being more active about.
Very true. As well, people would argue, they'd say, well, there's a danger of transmission within the community, even though if it's not going to kill those people. But I guess pretty much every scientist would agree that the greater danger is having large unvaccinated adults where a variant might evolve, which is immune to the vaccine, and then will put us all back into fucking square one.
And so the question about the levers is, if we don't vaccinate people under 17, there will be some young people who are very unwell and possibly die because of that decision. But the greater, I think, obviously more moral decision is to export bloody loads of vaccine.
But this is the thing
right away.
I guess
fast. That's my.
Where this goes is it's a reliance on the validity of the vaccine itself. I'm assuming. Workability.
If we've chosen not to debate that, we can do that. I've assumed the surface level analysis that it's effective.
Yeah, if you assume that it's an effective vaccine, because we're not talking about whether or not the vaccine is effective.
We can debate that. I'm happy to do it. You know, I got it in there early. You know, I've met the people who developed it. I'm, you know, happy to be that advocate.
Sure. But it's, again, kind of, I don't know. There are so many variants, as you say, so many different variants with this. Like, I mean, God, are we going to go on that fucking debate? Are we going to go? Because
we're going to leave it, I think, for another.
Because I'm going to say, because that's it's before it even starts. We're going to leave it for another time, because I think with things like that, I think people get entrenched in where they already are. Do you know what I mean? So did you burp and then?
No. I gave it real gusto.
Wow. So it's like
but
Leo,
man,
Leo McKern, you're a little bit.
Well, the thing is with the debates like this. I love the trolley problem, but like you said, it's got 1,000,001 different applications and stuff, because, like you said, there's decisions like this being made every single day. And I think that, I mean, I'm kind of sketchy on utilitarianism as a whole, to be honest with you. I just think it's all, again, it's so hard to define what is the greatest good for the... Yeah. The greatest number is usually very easy, but the greatest...
That bit of it's easier.
Yeah, but the greatest good bit is really hard about how it's going to affect people.
It's like the education system, leave no child behind kind of thing as well, isn't it? There is kind of that. It's kind of... There's a similarity, isn't it?
What do you mean?
You know, in terms of like leave no child behind.
Limited resources.
As in, like, basically, no kid. Basically, you can't be. Like, I remember when I did the Three Peaks. I did the Three Peaks years ago, once, never fucking again, with a bunch of comedians. I was in like the lowest rung. Basically, it was like me, Dave Turquoise, and Seymour. Yeah. I mean, like, that was the unfit gang.
Yeah, right?
So there was us, and we were like on the bottom. We did, and. Where was it going with this?
Leave no child behind. You might be
but it was we've got a second verse. Thank you. Scarfield Pike. We're on Scarfield Pike, and I just fucking melted down. I had a meltdown. I was fucked. It was like 4:00 in the morning. I was in bed. My bag was too heavy. I was like, I can't go. So, and I just kind of stopped, and they had to stop everybody. But what he did is he's like, okay, 5 minutes. Right, you have your glucose bar. He went, right, you're leading. Like, I can't lead. I was like, no, you're leading. We're all following you now. And I just felt so sorry for the rest of the group because I could barely fucking walk. Do you know what I mean? But there is that leave no. What happened is that entire group was hampered by my unfitness completely, by the fact that I could barely take a step. So they went up the rest of the mountain at my pace, which was slow as fuck.
I mean, technically, the utilitarian approach there would have been to put you down.
Throw me out. Just leave me.
So like Lenny, Mice and Men. And they go, Vince, go over there and picture a pub or something like that. Does it have cold pints? It does have cold pints. Then shotgun to the back of the head, leave you to the farmers to find.
Oh, I never knew that. I've never seen a Mason Man.
Have you not? No. I've ruined the end. I've ruined the end of it massively. Lenny dies.
Freddie Steinbeck.
So, before we go, have you got anything that you want to plug, Vince?
I don't think I do.
No.
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. I mean, no.
Have you got anything that you would like to plug, Alex?
Yes, I would like to plug the comedian Alex Farrow and his current work, Philosophy Pig, appropriately named for the Pigoted podcast. Alex Farrow, Philosophy Pig.
Why did you call it Philosophy Pig? Is it because of the pig that wants to be eaten?
No, because of the piggy pleasures, because of J.S. Mill and saying...
John Stuart Mill?
John Stewart himself.
Okay, what are the piggy pleasures, sorry?
The piggy pleasures are the lower pleasures. You know, J.S. Mill says it's better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a pig satisfied.
I didn't know, so I'm not massively familiar with John Stuart Mill, but that's me trying to claw back some dignity by saying his first and middle name.
You and John Stewart, both like that.
Yeah,
not familiar.
John Stewart. So
one of my students once said, by mistake, J.S. Milf in my lesson instead of J.S. Mill. And I remember you do a little bit of light teasing. I'm like, oh, J.S. Milf, what is he in your area? You know, and you know, all the kids are looking a bit weird and they're laughing or whatever. And a hand goes up, and this kid's like, "Sir, he didn't say J.S. Milf. You heard that?" I was like, "Oh, this has changed so fast, man. This is so embarrassing to hear that." Anyway,
excuse me, I'm just going to throw myself out the window.
I reckon that second kid was fucking with you.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Kids
They're smart. They're smart kids, man.
Evil. Kids go evil like that. You don't even know.
If they did, then that is amazing. That is an amazing
thing.
I know that it is because you don't expect it from them.
So it's better to be Socrates unsatisfied.
Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a pig satisfied.
That kind of goes against the...
You're not living the brain of a pig. Are you not happy?
But that kind of goes against
like
the...
a pig with angst, is it?
It goes against the wisdom, if you like, that ignorance is bliss, doesn't it?
So it's the reverse point to make. Better to be a wise man and have a full, in Mill's view, like a full intelligent life than one.
Really?
According to Mill.
Very interesting. What's his justification?
The justification for that is that higher pleasures, he says, like opera, reading, difficult things for people who can enjoy.
My twin pleasures.
But he says those people who can. I think he's incorrect on this, but there's an aspect of truth in it. Those people who can enjoy more difficult pleasures choose to. So it's those people who can afford like haute cuisine. They tend not to go for McDonald's. Right?
I would
it's
argue.
One of those things that if you have the ability to enjoy the more complex pleasures, he says, the proof is that they're better is because people who can do both choose the higher one.
Man,
the show's all about how that's incorrect. There we go.
Yes, I'm on that's incorrect as well. I don't like anything to do with that.
If nothing else, J.S. Miller's forgetting that pigs can orgasm for 30 minutes.
Really?
Whoa. Yeah, damn, that's one satisfied pig. Fuck
it. That's why they make that noise.
Yeah.
Was that like
when I pull my dick out? Sorry.
It's a boy pig, isn't it? Boy pig.
I believe it is the male pig that can orgasm for 30 minutes.
Do you female decide orgasm?
I've not checked.
Because looking at that, it's probably like most of that 30 minutes is just fucking going through that curly fucking thing, though, isn't it?
It's long, isn't it? Long, he's good. It's curly. Yeah, it's curly.
Going back to what he said, we will finish this podcast.
It's not my first pig orgy.
Going back to what he said about how, there's the reason that people indulge in higher pleasures is because they feel inherently better than these lower pleasures.
That's not quite what he said, but close to it, yeah. That they choose the more difficult pleasure when they have the easier pleasure offered to them.
Surely that's bollocks. Because part of the reason I think that people, quote unquote, indulge in higher pleasures is because of the snobbery around it. The reason that people go to a nice restaurant is not necessarily just to eat nicer food. It's to be seen and to be active in going to a nicer restaurant.
Well, it's 3 comedians around a table. We've all heard the argument like, oh, that's, that comedians, they're all right, but their stuff's a bit easy. It's a bit hackneyed.
Yeah, it's a bit
right? Like, for comedians around a table, and then maybe this is where I'll convince you that J.S. Mill isn't completely wrong, you'll always hear the argument, and I bet you've given the argument at least once. It's like, yeah, but like this stuff's a bit smarter, or this stuff's a little bit more complicated, or like this stuff's a bit newer, and therefore we think it's like a higher pleasure. It's better to laugh at insert your favorite comedian who's a comedian's comedian here than this other one. And I hear it again and again and again. We all think that we're like Democrats who like, all pleasures are equal, we're not snobs. But there's a form of snobbery in all of us, and as comedians, that's our one.
We're all
definitely.
snob.
I'm not going to name any names, but we're like snobs about some people.
Oh,
that is.
I will name names. I'm not.
that is a fair point, to be honest with you. Right, we're going to leave it there. Philosophy Pig, check it out. Don't check anything out of Vince's. He's not got anything.
Oh, well, I don't. That sounds shit.
And if you have enjoyed it, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/pigoted. You can sign up from just £3 a month, and for that you get early access to episodes. You get an extra episode called Pigoted Extra. You get access to Discord servers, to Telegrams. You get merchandise discounts and all sorts of amazing shit. So yeah, if you have enjoyed this, then make sure you're subscribing on whatever platform you are listening to, and follow us on Patreon to keep supporting the podcast. But other than that, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye. This episode of Pigoted is sponsored by Taylor's Toys. Taylor's Toys are a sex toy company. They specialise in doing high-quality sex toys that won't fall apart after 1 or 2 uses. Head over to taylorstoys.co.uk, check out the amazing range that they've got on offer, and if you use the discount code PIGOTED at checkout, you get yourself 10% off on all products. Taylor's Toys. Spice things up in the bedroom. Thank me later.